being an international student here in Germany. So again, just to go through the uh, main topics and the agenda. Firstly, so we'll just spend a few minutes on this. We'll be talking about what is like stress actually. So I know that there are a lot of different understandings of what stress actually is. So we're going to just really nail that down and make sure that we're all on the same page about what we mean when we talk about stress. Then we're going to really discuss about really using stress like for your advantage. So how to make the most out of it. It sounds a bit like a contradictory, but stay with me because it'll definitely make sense. Um, and also really, really importantly, it's not easy being an international student like as a whole. So how do we really stay resilient and make sure that regardless of what comes our way, that we're able to really stand up again. Um, as well, and this will be a feature of of a Mansour. He will be going into really how one should get ready for like written exams or oral exams because there are some different formats. I'm personally from Australia, and we very, very like seldom have spoken exams or oral exams. So this is quite an important slide, as well as some like tips and strategies about how to master things, but in accordance to the individual fields of study, so engineering, business, psychology, things like this. Um, and yeah, and then we will wrap up with a couple of reading recommendations as well as a little Q&A. So any questions you might have about any of these topics, like now's the time to have it cleared, and a bit of a networking session. So let us begin. So firstly, a couple of introductions. We'll just introduce myself briefly. So I have been a part of like DEGIS for almost 10 months now. It's been an absolute pleasure. Um, in case anyone has not heard of the organization before, we are the largest organization and community for international students here like a nationwide in Germany. I am currently in my Masters of Psychology here in Berlin. And in Australia, I did my bachelor's in psychology and a bachelor's in like business and commerce. I also used to work like for the DAD in Australia, again in like the marketing area, and I used to be a scholarship holder from them. So yes, as well, if like Mansour would like to introduce
Yeah.
yourself.
So I'm Mansour, and then I'm so I volunteered in DEGIS then for 1 year, and then first I was at DEGIS city chapter then for Wuppertal, and then I moved then to Schwäbisch Gmünd. It's in near Stuttgart. That's in the Stuttgart region. Then I did like first my vocational training in electroplating, and finished it last year. And while doing it, then I also did also my psychological and physical first aid certification in the course itself, and then also completed like during my time here in Germany like seven half marathons and six 10 kilometer races. And that's where then I got also some knowledge from back then from high school. Then I got like the AP Maths and AP Business courses, and have some knowledge on how to tackle it and how to study them well then in these fields. Now I'm pursuing then my state certified technician in electroplating then.
Amazing, thank you so much. Yeah, it's absolutely the case that having a diverse like a background really helps explain these overarching concepts. And of course, we are both international students, so it also comes from like like our own experiences too. So super important stuff. Okay, so let's jump right into it. So the first kind of introductory thing we're going to be speaking about is what is stress? So there are a variety of like understandings of stress, and we often associate stress as something that's bad. I just want to avoid stress at all costs. But actually, it has a function and it can actually help us in many instances. So we have the definition here, and if you notice in the orange like a brackets, I say like perceived. And the reason why I say that is because we all have our own certain fears and our own set of like understandings as well as beliefs of what is a threat or a challenge or a demand. So so like a stress is a natural part like of life, and it's something that our bodies are actually just really made for, like to handle stress, of course, up until a certain extent. But absolutely important to really nail down this like this understanding first off. And of course, stress not only results in like the physical symptoms like sweating, red face, flushed face, anxiety, but also a set of emotional responses or even certain thoughts that could be associated with the stress. So, as I mentioned, there's actually some good stress and some bad stress. So, to look at that a bit more carefully, uh, really like a good stress is a thing that can help really motivate us and refocus our energy. So, it helps in like performance enhancement and actually helps us experience a form of excitement. So, for example, and I think that Mansour could actually understand, he has done a number of like marathons. It really helps to get hyped up and pumped up before a race. Like you've even seen in the media that there are some like sports coaches, they shake their like trainees and they even slap them sometimes. Not that I recommend that, but that's really a way to get the adrenaline going and hype them up in a good form of stress. So but that being said, there's also more so a bad form of stress, and it's often the stress that is really long lasting, like above what our body and mind really deserves. And it happens in situations that are very much really overwhelming and like not only objectively, but how we perceive it. So the long standing of this will be burnout and really worsened immune system functioning. You could get sick easily. You might find you have a cold that you can't really shake. And yeah, absolutely. This is in the category and often influenced like by this bad form of stress. So, and even still, it's not so black and white. Stress is very much on a continuum. So, really, up until a certain point, for example, getting a bit hyped right before an exam, it helps us to maintain our focus, to stay motivated, just ready to go, like ready to fight, but in a good way. If that goes on for way too long, or it's regarding situations that are really stressful, that you perceive to be really, really stressful, um, in a unhealthy way, you could be having issues with some friendships or some other things that, as they say, like a toxic situation, then you can easily go onto the other side of the spectrum, and that's when it gets, uh, of course, sometimes a bit risky. So that's all good and well, but how do we turn stress into our favor? The biggest thing, and it is related to the how I had in brackets about the perceived, about shifting your mindset. And it's always easier like I said than done, but it's really, really important because the way that we perceive the world, it also starts with us, not just our eyes and the physical components of our body, but also the way we think about things and the beliefs that we have and the mindset that we have. So it really helps to shift your mindset and see stress as a sense of fuel and actually not not a threat. That in some instances it's actually like really there to help us. It can also be a performance enhancer. So, just one example, let's say that you're about to have an oral exam and you're just nervous out of your mind. Maybe you have to speak in German, not English, for example. You could be in a German taught like a program like I'm in, and you have to suddenly speak about all these complex like topics. It really helps, and I have done this myself as well, where I stop and think, hey, I'm really excited about this. I'm so hyped about it. This is something I've been looking forward to, like even if it is to just get it out of the way and get it over and done with. I'm hyped. I'm hyped for this to be over. I'm hyped to just really give my all, instead of feeling quite restricted of, oh, I'm nervous, or and it's very easily that this kind of thing ends up a bit as a self um like a criticism. I'm so nervous, I'm this, I'm that. Rather, I'm excited, I'm ready, I have my eye on the ball, I have some adrenaline, but um it's going to help me. So uh you will notice, sometimes I think all of us at some point on Instagram and whatnot, we get these reels about the super successful person, how they made it there and how they achieved all of this. A very like a common trait of these high achievers at university and beyond is that they see stress as a learning opportunity and a sign to grow. So another example is, instead of, you might have a really difficult exam in front of you and you say, oh my God, I don't want to fail. I think all of us at one point, including myself, has had like this perception of, oh my God, I just don't want to fail. The exam's going to be in German, or it's going to be a topic that I'm not so comfortable with. That unfortunately uh, can actually like restrict you, because like unintentionally, like now your mind is focusing on failing. But if you want to say, hey, I really want to do my new best, I want to improve, you shift the focus of your mind into the positive. Um, exactly. And with that being said, I've also highlighted here the word grow and growth, because uh, it is extremely relevant for our next slide here. Um, Speaking of mindsets, the mindset and the mental framing that I speak of is called a growth mindset. So this again, one of the common like correlates with people who are successful and who are super resilient is that they reframe the situations happening to them. So here are some examples on like on the graphic itself. But let's look at the one example to the right. Uh, it's really common, and I think all of us have experiences as well, like where we think, um, I'm so jealous that they got a higher grade. Like I just tried so hard, but they just keep scoring so high. I just feel terrible. Um, Really, firstly, um, it is actually okay to have these thoughts. We've all had these thoughts, but there is a way to shift it to really allow ourselves to actually achieve what we might feel jealous of. We can rephrase it as, I'm actually really inspired, uh, like from their success, um, from their grades, and also to understand that, you know, it's really easy to compare to other international students or other students that might be like us in one way or another. But the fact is that we are on our own, like a journey. We are sorry, tongue twister. We are on our own way and our own path. So it's really important to just take a step back, to really reflect and just reconsider these things before either beating your yeah, exactly, either like beating yourself up or making big decisions. So it's important to also focus on what you can control instead of what just went wrong. Um, this is something that I have actually screenshotted on my phone. So, of course, feel free to do the same if you think it's helpful. These are questions that you can ask yourself to really ground yourself again in the present moment and gain a perspective, like a bird's eye view or a third person perspective. Sometimes it's so hard, like when you're in the middle of a stressful event, to think everything just fallen apart. Like my exam is I'm just going to fail at whatever it may be. But these questions are also super, super important to just ground. Uh, what I think one of my favorite ones is the last one that's all in bold is, will this actually matter in a month or a year? On the grand scheme of things, we have a lot of exams, whether we like it or not, many like modules, and you might just find that having an issue with one of those exams, it's not going to be so serious at the end of your degree. And also to consider that in your degree, and at least here in Germany, when looking for a job afterwards, it's not the be all or end all. Uh, you like your personality, your character, your work experience, and your work ethic are also going to pay a lot. So now I will pass it over to Mansour, who will speak a little bit about the thing of burnout, and we'll go through the next topics. Thank you.
Okay, so now I then start talking about then how to manage and avoid burnout. So in order then to talk about it, then avoidance is like something great, but then it cannot be then optimally then avoided. So it's better than to say that and then to how to manage them better than the burnout. As we see here, we have like here then the graph. We have like here then the descriptions of I am. So the I am means then that I have the ability and I have the right mindset and shift to do it and to change. The whereas to the upper part, the I can, the I can part segment, it talks mainly about then you still have the ability to do it, but then it comes at this breaking point where it's no longer then where you feel maybe then burnt out, or you feel like that all you've done, and then you're like in a trap and you can't get out. And then the third point is then the freeze point. It's like it talks mainly then the I cannot, then this simply means then the peak point simply means then that you've come to this ability that that the work you're doing and then also the hard work you're doing then. So that I would not say the ability. Of course, you have the ability to do anything you can, but then not for this moment. Not at the moment right now, but at the specific moment. But then
Mm-hmm.
but then in order then not not to step into the I can to the I can't segment, to the freeze point where the burnout where the graph splits to the half. It's not better than to understand it and then for example then it's better always then to stay in the social engagement segment, because
Yeah.
then when staying here there are like up and downs, and then by these up and downs then you could manage then the work and then and also like the work life balance then in all
Mm-hmm.
in order then in order then to grow, and then while growing, then you could then expand this one segment of the I am to the I can per segment, and then while then you don't then the good part is then you don't step into this as said before, into this stress zone, and then it's like the strength form is like mainly then used then to avoid then the fight. Of course, there would be some fight and some doubts, but then it would not be as much as it would be before. Then
Absolutely. Yeah.
then lastly then even if you expand then this one segment of the I am segment, then the circle then it becomes much more bigger, and now then the one person, for example, you could then focus on much more work, and then go on from one task to the other task, or to study then from one task to the other task, not to step into the freeze point, and then because then when one's burnt out, it needs then attention, then you need then a good well-being then to recover from it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Second,
So, yes, please.
secondly, then so about the written and oral exams. So I would then mainly talk then in general. It's like for the written and oral exams, there are like also some difference between language and language barriers. But then mainly for the written exams, they, for example, not it needs then much more focus, not because what is said, it's not the same thing as in what is then written, because then
Mm-hmm.
it because then there's like the difference between what is written, what is said, and then you need then to shift it, and then to translate it, mainly then from the spoken part to the written part.
Mm-hmm.
First of all then we, instead of studying then lots of hours for the written exams, it's better than to find like an effective way that takes like less time. There are like lots of study techniques, but then each study techniques that, for example, it's individual for each one. So so I would not say then that everyone could then should study like this. There's this one study method. So you should then try as many study methods as you can, and then with the best performance, then you could then you know then what study method you're most capable of doing for
Mm.
each relevant topics. And then another part is then of when having then lots of exams, and then to postpone each exams. It's better not to s- it's better not to study even the night before the exam. Of course, there's like this one exam, for example, in quantum mechanics, where it's much more difficult, and then there are a lot of expressions, and a lot of expressions, and then a lot of rules, and you have to know. But then it's always better than to study right before every lecture, because then to reduce the stress, the negative stress level at the end. So the night before the exam, you could do, for example, you you should mainly focus on the revision to skim or the whole syllabus, and then at the rest of the time you should like do something fun to recover from it. For
Mm-hmm.
example, then you could talk to your friend, or then go for a walk, then or play a musical instrument, or what. So, so anything that makes that you would benefit from it. Then,
That's-
then to the MCQ questions, it's the multiple choice questions. It's mainly then based on when answering the multiple choice questions. It's mainly then based it depends on the exam criteria, because some exam criteria mainly take then the longest answer, and some others they may take the shortest answer. So it depends then whether you should then be aware then of what of what your exam criteria depends on. Because for example, for the SATs or the ACTs, then it's mainly then it's mainly then said then you should man it up then to take like the short answer. But then for other it depends also for language exams. It's better than to take the longer answer, for example, for the DELC or for DELC C1 Hochschule exam, or for the Goethe C1 Zertifikat. So it's better than to take the longer, because then it shows then that you know it, you know the question, the answer well then. And then it's always first it's always in the listening part, when taking a listening part, and when you hear like something that like once and then you choose like the first answer, you should always then you should always try to stick to the first answer, not to the second guess, because mainly then it's like this feeling that you might think it's like the second guess, but then it's like maybe the first answer. Only in some exceptions, of course, when you misheard something, then you could then could take then the second answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So going then to the oral exam, it's like this one is like much more tough. It's like in order then to master it like well, you just need then to do like it needs like mainly then it's the number one the priority number one is like confidence, because when getting in there then confident, then the examiners themselves then they would see you as an competent learner, and then someone who's then willing then to share his knowledge then and experiences. Of course, with confidence, of course, then a lot of us, for example, they're like stressing out, and then they have like they move like a lot, and then they have like always they are sweating a lot, but then they could then instead of hiding it, you could, for example, when you're moving then around, you could, for example, use this moving around then to transform it then into body language to show them around then some tasks then, either for example for presentations then to show on the graphs, or to describe graphs better with your hands, or then to use visuals. Then better right after, when being then confident, even though when using then you should then, if possible, you could do, for example, then they usually give you like one piece of paper then to prepare them to write your notes down, or to write information. It's usually then written, so that's usually then said from the examiners that you're not allowed to write a script. So therefore, I would recommend, instead of writing lots of words, either you should write like to brainstorm, or like a like a consecutive then order then right under then with some points, or for example with single words, or double words, for example, and to know then from which point you're going, then to have like the small structure then then
absolutely.
after going then with the structure, then it's mainly then find out you've made it's made then the important question then to find out then the questions that would be asked, or for example then to know then, for example, which examiners are the will examine you, for example. And it's always important then to talk with mentors, professors, because then they know then how to give questions to the students, and then as well then to answer, like for example other students who've taken this exam, because then they know then well what would be asked. For my opinion, it's it's then better than to ace like this exam, better than to think about the topic, and then together like to talk to cover all the syllabus, and then to put like some additional input on top of it. You don't have to put like a lot of input because it could lead then out of it could lead then to another question, to another topic, but then you could mainly then cover it with some with only with a small layer of extra information. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Super important about the differences between the written and oral exams. Again, there seems to be a lot of education systems that don't have oral exams, Australia being one of them. It's very, very seldom. So it's great to know the differences. Absolutely. Yeah, so now we'll look at the really specific tips about the overarching disciplines, of course.
But for the specific subject study tips, then I would I would mainly then to begin then with business and economics. It's mainly then it's mainly then to study, like for example when studying or revising, then it's better than to study then the key concepts and key ideas. It's mainly also then to it's made sometimes also in the book themselves they wrote like some study tips, and then and also some keywords you should then study them, and then and the bad thing is then in business and economics then you have then to memorize them and to know then definitions and words, but then it would be then better than also then to revise them for each section then the words then. And then as well, then when memorizing then each word and definition, it's better than also to keep practicing, because every business exam then keeps it's then different or is then held differently, because then there are like a lot of examples then of on how the business exams goes on. For example, then when taking, for example, in accounting, then an exam, then it would be like, for example, these different account types, and then on how to make the depreciation. And you could, for example, then there's like the difference between taking the account types for the company of the structure, for example, in technical in a technical direction, or for example another company more like it's like a grocery really then, and then the grocery then section then and then there's like the difference like between them, because then they are mainly dealing then with machines, and then the others are dealing then with food and beverage. Secondly, when taking then science and engineering exams, it has like also then this one criteria to study like key concepts, and then also then to study like these to keep studying also like the words and definitions. But it's always keeping them to practice, and then while practicing, it's better to tutor friends or your fellow colleagues, because when tutoring then your friends, your friends then that means that you know it then well, and then you can explain it to other people, and as soon as you can explain it to other people, and other people, of course, everyone would learn them differently. But then if you could then explain to other people, it's much it would you would like have this feeling of that you know this the study technique, and then and then you know this one topic, and you know on how to use it, how to implement it, and therefore then you can also then teach it to other people. And after teaching it to other people, you should also then ask for their advice, and to learn by doing. And the third thing is also music. So I don't have like lots of information to this part, because I don't have the major and also music, but then it's like much more better than to learn and grow with others, mainly than with so either then to point number two, then to learn from friends or colleagues, or to ask for advice, because professors and mentors are always unhappy then for students then to learn then to ask frequent questions, relevant questions. The fourth point is mainly then it's about foreign language. So every foreign language has like different ideas, but then every language has like every language has in linguistics have like this one concept about that you should know then this one language, and then you should then go through the doubts and errors because mistakes are because it's normal to do mistakes, and when doing mistakes then you could for example you could for example encircle and then memory and know the mistakes that you've done it, and then also you can identify these mistakes by your own. For example, when you went through when proofreading then your essay then that you've written, or some questions that you've written, then you could then read it again and then identify, and then you read it as for example you're like the examiner, then you could then identify what are the mistakes, and then you could revise them, and therefore then be like then revising your own essays, and then your own writing, and that's of course you could do so also, so you could misread something because you've read it many times and wrote it many times, but then by time then you could then master this point and in order to correct your own mistakes and then also other mistakes.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I have to say, I really agree about the foreign languages part as well. The biggest uh hindrance, or in English, the hindrance of any individual that will learn a foreign language such as German is really the fear of like making mistakes and in front of other people. The people that I know that have really excelled in German, they had very little fear about this, and they realize that I don't care if people will criticize me or really look down on me because I'm making these like German errors with the prepositions or what have you. Um, it is so important to really like allow yourself to be an individual that makes errors, or an individual with flaws. That's completely okay. Um, Absolutely. So, um, this is a super important slide. Thank you, Mansour.
So this slide can so so this one slide is like when seeing and then when reviewing then study techniques, and then also then when seeing like other methods, and then when asking professors or then other people then about how to study well. So they mainly then refer to this one graph because it's always better, for example, to learn then the right hand, and then to keep learning. Of course, you don't have to revise every 10 times or 20 times, but then it's always better, for example, when taking the first class, then and then after the class you have like a knowledge of eight you've gained like a knowledge of 80%, around 80, and then that means then of course there's like some misunderstood. You've,
So sorry about that. I'm not quite sure what has happened. Excuse me, just one second. I think maybe one of our other staff just tried to log in to participate. My apologies. Let me fix that right now. Okay, screen two, share. So I'm just going to double check that the recording is still working. Yes, it's still working. Now, is everyone able to see the screen again?
that's what, could you move then to previous one, to the previous slide?
Ah, yes, of course. Apologies. Yes, we just I was indeed correct. It was a mistaken login by another staff member. My apologies. Okay, let me go back on here. There we are. Sorry, please continue. Thank you.
But then when studying, then when taking then after the class done, and then you have like the 80% knowledge, and then you have like the 20% that's all missing. It's always then better than to study them right after the class, because if you don't study and then leave it at the end, then you're your memory of from this one class, then it will then descend, it will drop down, then it will not reach to zero, but then over the time it will approach to zero, but never that it will never reach to zero, because you will still have some knowledge, but not as much as before. So therefore, some also so I guess so when talking to anyone who have studied before, they mainly recommend them to read, for example, after the first class, it takes sometimes 5 minutes or no less than 5 minutes, or sometimes 10 minutes, so of a day, and then that's like mainly not a huge, not a tremendous time then uh, that you're that you have to study a lot, because then it takes, because of 10 minutes a day, then that's like nothing at all. And then after the 10 minutes, then you gain like a knowledge of back to 100%. And then this curve, for example, lowers down over time. And then if you, for example, the next for not for the next week, for example, only read it again, then for 1 or 2 minutes, then it would also then the curve would you would then know and memorize and the information, then the topics then itself, and then if you keep going, then you would know it better. Or you can, for example, study it, for example, right after the class, and for example at the same day at night, when studying, for example, only for 10 minutes, and then at the end of the week you could study the week's curriculum, for example, also at the end of the week, then to gain the knowledge. And then when coming to the exams, you would have like the knowledge, but not memorized. So therefore, you would only need to revise, and then this would not take a lot of time, and you would come out then like stress. I would say like stress an apostrophe stress free, because then you would not have like a lot of worries then about the exam. And then to the others to this one then diagram, for example, for the constant studying and revision. So actually this one, not from the two previous slides, and this one diagram I've made it myself, and then it was then so this one, so not everyone knows it, but then there there are like different types of learners. So so these are the main three types, but then I would say like there are many types, but then we can't just list all of the types, because for example when list because I've listed the three main types, and then from the three main types it could be categorized to other types, and those are differ to differentiate between other types of learners. So we would talk mainly about the average learners, for example. The average learners, for example, when they learn, they it takes like some time to gain the knowledge, and then it also takes some, and then and even though they have to then to put into then the productivity then to learn, and then to keep to keep them learning them better. So, and then for example for the fast-paced learners, it's more much it's then better than to keep these are the learners then who learn then over a short time then faster and gain more knowledge over a short time. And then there is also the slow-paced learners who learn then over a longer time than much then slower, but then all three, or for example all different the different learners, for example, they reach the same goal then as one goal. So
Yeah, and the really important thing is that regardless of which like learner a type that you think you're in, it all makes a big difference in the long run. Just consistency, consistency makes a huge difference.
So lastly, last but not least, then I would talk to them mainly then to go through them on how to maintain the healthy habits. So it's better than so that's before then also said before that's to differentiate between either then so I would not say work, but then mainly then study time and then your well-being because both have to be you have to be aware of both because well, if one is down, then the other one is then up, and then there would be like this need then that you need to change something. For example, if you put like for example your study time, of course should put your study times then as the first priority. But then if your well-being has some negative effects then on it, then you should also look after your well-being, because if your well-being is then worsening after time and it's accumulating after time, then you will regret it at a later age at the and you would say to yourself then it was it would be much more beneficial than to gain the like this to gain the, to have like taken care of my well-being than while studying. Then it's much, so I would recommend then, for example, then you don't have to have like a specific a specific hobby or leisure time then to do. But then, for example, when studying like a lot, then it would be like beneficial then to do something like, for example, fun or something. Then, for example, then that keeps you then disciplined or motivated then to study then even more. And then both then you recharge your batteries and then your social batteries, and then and then you can then start study and then learn more. And on the other hand, then also you do like something that one you like, and then on the other hand, then on the third hand, you do like this one discipline thing, like for example, doing exercises or then playing an instrument. Then differentiate then for every individual, but then it depends on for anyone then to keep them going then.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, uh, big thank you again, Mansour, for all your insights as a fellow international student and being a city chapter president here in Stuttgart. Um, yeah, so I am so excited now to really jump into the Q&A. If anyone has any questions at all, we're all ears. And yeah, and I also just briefly wanted to introduce the organization in case a few people weren't aware. We are really a uh, big community, in fact, the biggest community here in Germany for international students. We support international students in a variety of ways, such as welcome events, helpful information packages upon arrival, or even orienting yourself around while here in Germany. We have a huge, a yearly, like a buddy program that will match our newbies, so to speak, with the veterans. So really from the start of your journey here in Germany, you feel you have a direct connection with someone who knows exactly how it's like to be in your shoes. Um, and honestly, it is uh, really such a helpful engagement um, that students have been reporting that has helped them in the long term. And so you could do one of two things if you're interested. You could join us as a community member. I will put the link in the chat in just a second, but also you can become a volunteer with us. So we've heard a lot, and I think the existing international students here in Germany can also say that it is a bit hard to enter the Arbeitsmarkt, the like the job market here in
In
Germany. Yes, uh yes, to really show the really bridge or link up your past experiences in your home country with the opportunities here, and really doing something on a volunteer basis makes all the difference in your CV to show, yes, I am from another country, but I have these experiences here. I have initiative. I like helping others, and that really pays off from like all the feedback that we've gotten so far. It's also a way to really network and really make new friendships as well with other international students. So, with that being said, and also feel free to follow us on Instagram. If anyone wanted to make a quick screenshot of this, because we are running out of time, and I will just stop recording briefly. So,